December 26, 1996. Boulder, Colorado. A family woke up to the worst possible nightmare. Their 6-year-old daughter JonBenét was missing. Hours later, she was found in the basement of their home, dead. She had been sexually assaulted and murdered. The case would become one of America's most famous unsolved crimes. Despite millions spent on investigation and decades of speculation, no one was ever charged. Who killed JonBenét Ramsey? This is the complete story of a murder that may never be solved. Welcome to the channel. The Ramseys were Boulder elites. John was a businessman, Patsy a former beauty queen. They had 2 children, 9-year-old Burke and 6-year-old JonBenét, who competed in child beauty pageants. Yet here's the problem: their perfect family image would become the perfect cover for suspicion. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would anyone target this seemingly ideal family? And that's where it gets strange. The pageant world that made JonBenét famous would also draw dark attention. What happened on that Christmas night? Peek 1, December 25, 1996. The Ramseys attended a party that afternoon. They returned home around 10 p.m. Yet here's the problem: what happened between then and morning is still unknown. Yet one detail doesn't fit. How could a crime happen in a 7,000 square foot home without anyone hearing? And that's where it gets strange. The family claims they didn't discover JonBenét was missing until the next morning. But was that true? December 26, 8 a.m. Patsy Ramsey called 911. JonBenét was missing. Yet here's the problem: the 911 call revealed strange details. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Patsy seemed more concerned about the ransom note than finding her daughter. And that's where it gets strange. The note was 3 pages long, written on paper from the house. It demanded $118,000. Who takes time to write such a note? The autopsy revealed JonBenét had been strangled and sexually assaulted. Yet here's the problem: the evidence was contaminated and mishandled. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why did police focus on the parents so quickly? And that's where it gets strange. Crucial DNA evidence existed, but was nearly lost due to poor lab work. Could it have solved the case? Peek 2, the Ransom Note became one of the most analyzed documents in true crime history. Yet here's the problem: it was written in the house, on house paper. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would an intruder spend 20 minutes writing it? And that's where it gets strange. The note used phrases only a family member would know. Speak English and restore your daughter sounded like the Ramseys talking to themselves. John and Patsy Ramsey became instant suspects. Yet here's the problem: they were never formally charged. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why did police focus on them so heavily? And that's where it gets strange. They were allowed to leave Colorado and never effectively questioned for years. Were they protected? JonBenét's 9-year-old brother Burke was in the house that night. Yet here's the problem: he was never properly interviewed. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why wasn't a child's account of that night considered crucial? And that's where it gets strange. In 2016, Burke was finally interviewed and seemed strangely indifferent. Did he know something? Some believe an intruder committed the crime. Yet here's the problem: there's no evidence of forced entry. Yet one detail doesn't fit. How did someone get in and out without leaving tracks? And that's where it gets strange. The intruder would have had to know the house perfectly. Was there help from inside? DNA is the only scientific evidence that might solve this case. Yet here's the problem: it's been nearly 30 years. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why hasn't it matched anyone? And that's where it gets strange. The DNA belongs to an unknown male, possibly from a touch sample. Could it be the real killer? The Boulder police investigation was plagued by mistakes. Yet here's the problem: they focused on the parents and never properly investigated others. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why was the case mishandled so badly? And that's where it gets strange. The original detective was demoted and the case was taken away. What went wrong? Dozens of theories exist about who killed JonBenét. Yet here's the problem: none can be proven. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why do people believe what they believe? And that's where it gets strange. Some believe the parents, some believe an intruder, some believe the brother. Each theory has flaws, which is closest to the truth. The JonBenét case became a media sensation. Yet here's the problem: the coverage may have hurt the investigation. Yet one detail doesn't fit. How did coverage change the case? And that's where it gets strange. True crime podcasts and documentaries still cover it decades later. The case that never ends. Patsy Ramsey died of cancer in 2006. Yet here's the problem: she was never cleared or convicted. Yet one detail doesn't fit: did she take the truth to her grave? And that's where it gets strange. In her final years, she maintained her innocence. We never knew what she knew. The case remains officially unsolved. Yet here's the problem: who is still investigating? Yet one detail doesn't fit: has the case been forgotten? And that's where it gets strange. In 2022, the Boulder DA offered new DNA testing. Could this finally solve it? Who killed JonBenét Ramsey? We may never know. Yet here's the problem: someone knows. Someone was in that house. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Will they ever come forward? And that's where it gets strange. With each passing year, the chance of justice diminishes. JonBenét was 6 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. Now she's a symbol of innocence lost, a reminder that some mysteries never get solved. The little girl in the beautiful dress, the child beauty queen, the victim who never got justice, who took her life. The answer remains buried in that Boulder basement, waiting to be found. Will we ever know the truth? The JonBenét Ramsey case remains one of America's greatest true crime mysteries. Subscribe for more cold case investigations, and let me know in the comments what theory you believe. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this video.